Test process. Again, this is the fourth part of the ISTQB part 1. It is a lot of content on this part, but I'll try to go through and explain everything so you understand that part. Okay, so the test process for each organization in any given project will very much depend on the situation of each system to test, and there are no one process fits all for everything. However, there are some basic principles, activities that ISTQB lays out there and recommend, and the ones that are more common that people use. Without this exercise, the test objective may be likely that not being achieved properly. So these activities are the test process that you could follow, like the beginning, middle, and end. It's good to kind of have these in mind. And if you understand these, as you go through the exercises and the test, the exam, you'll be ready and good to go. It all depends as well on the organization and the test strategy of the organization that you're working with, and you just adjust accordingly with that organizational strategy. Okay, just to put it in context, all the contextual factors that you need, and I will expand in each one of these further down the slides. So the first one will be the test levels and the test types to be considered when you're approaching any operational constraint, including but not limited to budget and resources, the time scale, the complexity, the contractual and regulatory requirements, the product and project risks. This is more for when you're working with the project manager around that. The business domain, I did publish a post in my website about the business domain as well, expand a little bit more about these. Organizational policies and practices, required internal external standards, software development lifecycle model, and project methodologies that are going to be used. So all of these you have to have in context for to prepare for your plans. So the next one, the test levels and the test type. At the unit level, the functional test will be the unit tests, and non-functional tests, load, stress, security, code coverage, the metrics about that. You have to have that in context of the project that you're going to be working on. I work with projects that we don't do enough unit tests because for whatever reason is already being covered. So one example could be like an out of the shelf, like a ready product that it's not required to do unit tests. Integration, test level, unit integration tests, component integration tests, microservices testing, and non-functional load, stress, security, contract tests. The system, end-to-end. So when the system is ready for test on the environment, it has the whole process ready for you to test. We call it end-to-end. So it has a beginning, middle, and end. You can also, as non-functional, you can do load, stress, security, reliability, scalability, maintainability. And then finally, before it goes live, the acceptance, where this is where you invite the users to carry out the UAT testing, the user acceptance testing. You can do the alpha test and beta test as well. And the non-functional will be load, stress, security, usability, A/B tests. Moving on to the next is the product and project risks. Again, this is more of project manager or product manager who will be focusing on this one, but you will help filling in the gaps and helping them with the informative decision based on your findings and the risks that you put it together from testing point of view. Okay. Moving on, business domain. I have written a more extensive, my opinion about, 8 ways domain knowledge can help you become a better software tester. Just go and check it out. So a test will get more creative. They get more it will be more appealing, more exciting if you are working on something that you know the domain. So like myself, particularly, I like Dynamics 365 and I like to work with it. I like how It is. Not many people like it, but I happen to be the one that I like it. I like to work in CRM, ERP, and everything related to Dynamics 365 and Power Apps. And that helps, with my judgment and confidence of the system, because I happen to know a lot inside out how the system works. That can help with how we're gonna make the failure happen, so we can prove it and say, look, I think this is not quite right because XYZ, based on my experience, because I've seen this before, the customers and blah blah blah, and all these things, it can help with the business domain in context. If you don't know, I didn't happen to know Dynamics 365. You could say, oh, it's easy for you to say, Roger, because I didn't know Dynamics 365 before. So what I did is I just gone around and watched videos, downloaded the tested version. I've got some videos that I am due to publish around Dynamics 365, but you can get like a trial version license that you can access. These days is all in the cloud, and you don't have to install anything apart from Power BI if you are into Power BI as well, which sits under the Power App application. But anyway, so you just happen to learn and then expose yourself. If you in an organization where you are, if they need someone to work in that particular system, start to ask, oh, can I volunteer? Can I try? Can I test this? Can I have a look? Can I see? Can you walk me through? Can you do a show and tell? All these things, read the documentation, and then you start to get to know that. And people see, they appreciate that you are interested on it. This is, business domain. It will be covered around this perspective. Operational constraints. So the classical is the budget resources, the time scale, the time constraint that you have it, the complexity, how complex this is. So this is important for you to know. These can affect the test phase or the whole project. Typically, up front what was the case, and then you can just plan, because your plan will be, part of your plan will be, you need to know this as well as advanced as possible, so you can plan accordingly. Am I going to spend more time testing or less time testing? Because I need to have this in mind, that there's budget constraint and time constraint on this and how complex this is. Okay, it depends on project. It can affect the performance and the testing directly. But in most cases, like in companies that I work with, clients that have a regulatory obligation, then it might be slightly different. Resource triangle, this is not on the syllabus 2018 on this part. I got this from the previous course that I've got from old course on ISTQB, but I like to have these in here because it can help you think about these as well. The resource triangle, you may already have heard about it. Time, cost, and quality. You can only have two. You can only pick two. You can't design something quickly and high standard, but then maybe not be cheap, or design something quickly and cheaply but be a high quality, or design something high quality and cheaply but take a relatively long time to do it. It is good to have this in mind as well. Remember that. Organizational policies and practices. So the organization will have organization strategy that the quality management will manage these, with the test manager more of a strategy level, and that under that it sits the test management process. So specific about the test manager strategy that will have the projects under it. For that project, it has to follow these strategy for the project. Therefore, will follow the organization strategy. And as you work on this project process, you will have your plan. And under your plan, you will have what you're planning to test, where you're planning to test, what your test cases are, the reports, the completion reports, how you measure new tests, and everything like that. And normally use a tool to manage that, to have that control when you dynamically testing. After that completion is done, then you feed back to the test manager, and the test manager would normally adjust something accordingly to you to the project that you're working on. Normally in an organization you have multiple projects, so they have slightly differences between their projects plan, but all of them should follow the organizational strategy. So that feedback, it keeps everything that it's done, it keeps feeding back to improve the process, which again, it's another level I mentioned in another video. It's on another level of test management or process improvement of testing that this bit will applies more. Required internal and external standards. Internally, the system, but you have different departments, but also these departments, they might have different systems externally that they communicate, different branches or different, if it's a governmental body, might have different other organizational public body that integrates with that system, and that they have their own ways of processing information, data. That's something that the context can be affected within the context that you are applying your tests. It very much depends on each other. So process quality, how you process measure, and how influence can depend on the internal properties and so on. So the internal properties, external properties, and in the end result, the quality in use. It could depend on in each internal and external influences. The approach that you test within that context, it might be different in each one of these, let's say, links. Okay. So this is a shorter version of the organizational policies and practices. This is like just to give a very smaller summary. It would serve as a basis and aid you through to prepare for your test plan. So where you capture the test activities, the tasks, test work products, traceability between the test bases and test work products. So at the high level, you have the organizational test process applied to the test policy, and then you have the mid layer, which is the organizational test process applied to the test strategy, and then you have the test management process applied to the project test management, and it keeps feeding back to improve the overall process as project goes along. Okay, this is a constant improvement. The test activities and tasks within the test process, one goes after the other here. I did show in another video a short version of these, like five steps. This is the same but a bit more expanded in more details, and I'll talk about each one of it. So the test planning, the first one, and then it goes on following the test monitoring control, and then the test analysis, and then test design, test implementation, test execution, test completion. That's when you complete everything. You could follow all these steps by details, but it depends on the context. This is a mind map of the test plan. So a documentation, you could use a template. There are a lot of templates out there. I've got templates in my website you can download as well if you want, but there are plenty out there. I use these as a basis for me to prepare for my test plan. I used to use Word document, but I convinced the place where I'm working now to use the wiki page from the Azure DevOps, which if you work with Jira, it's equivalent to Confluence. So Confluence has that documentation part as well, where you can use. So the good thing about this, the wiki, that you can export as a PDF. It's good for versioning, something that no one can change after it's been signed off. The planning will be much more explained in depth and the further parts of the videos on the section 5. Don't worry too much about it now, but this is just to give you a high-level overview of what is expected for the test planning. Test monitoring control. So the test management, so you have the planning phase, and then you have the execution phase. In the planning phase, you capture the risk analysis, the test estimation, test planning, test organization. In the execution phase, you do the test monitoring control, the issue management, so how you manage your bugs, and then the test reporting evaluation. So have I tested what I plan to test, and so on. It depends also on the methodology that you're working on. If you're working with waterfall, V model, or working agile, it might be slightly different. Here, I captured at that phase of the test analysis and giving these methodologies there as an example, waterfall or V model. It will be as soon as the requirements is being gathered and you work on a test plan, this is where you do the analysis of that information, and this is where you think what to test, and that will serve as a measurement for the coverage of you're going to spend on testing according to your plan. Earlier in the test analysis, we talked about what to test when I talked about previously what to test, and in here it's more of how am I going to test. So given on the V model, this will be the third step ish. The software design, I say ish because you can do two things at the same time, which is as you design as well. As you do the analysis, you can design as you're doing it. The main advantage of these phases to discover early bugs, even before you actually use the system. So the test design techniques as well. So this will be talked about in future videos as well, but this is just a glimpse of the test design techniques. So the test in the static, you have the static analysis and the review, and the dynamic testing, you have the white box and the experience based, and you have the black box, which is more functional, non-functional, which I most of the tests are around these, but of course, these are more specialized, and not all tests go around that, but these days, yeah. And then this is, like I said, this is just a glimpse. I'm not going to go in full details now. It will be in future videos, but it's just to give you a glimpse of what test design means. Test implementation, after you worked on the test design and then you ready for the implementation on the test environment, and the question is, do we have everything that we need to be able to start testing? Is the environment ready? Have got the test user accounts that can be configured in a way to impersonate the users in the best way as possible, based on a profile, a live profile? Have got all the test cases, all the test scripts, if you're running automation test suite, the test plan, the environment, all the data set is ready and good to go. And also it's the phase where you do a little bit of exploratory, and that exploratory as well, it can help you document for future tests as well as you go through the exploratory. Test execution. So once you have everything ready, so let's execute that accordingly to the schedule that you've been planned for. And this is where you record all the IDs and the versions of the tests, the item tests or the test objectives, and the test tools. If you are carrying out, of course, some tests will be manual, some will be automated. And this is where you capture all the results. You do the analysis of any anomalies that you find, the failures, defects, and so on. This is where you capture all the defects and raise the bugs. So in a typical report, if you use a spreadsheet or if you use a tool like Azure DevOps or Jira or Test Complete or Zephyr, this is basically what you need to know, passed, failed, or not run yet these tests. That's in a nutshell what the execution is. Test completion. What's the completion criteria? It's what you set in the beginning of the project. When is the time to stop? When do you know that? The exit criteria is connected to the test coverage. So the test case design technique adopted and the risk level of the product varies from one test level to another. Basically, these are the criteria here. So specified coverage has been achieved. No showstoppers or critical defects has been logged. There are very few or non-medium or low priority defects that don't affect the usage of the product, being signed off by business as well. Do they accept that? If exit criteria has not been met, the test cannot be stopped. It has to carry on. The exit criteria must be revamped, or the time should be extended for testing based on the quality of the product, and any changes to the test completion criteria must be documented and signed off by the stakeholders. The test where can be released upon successful completion exit criteria. Here is an example. I took this screenshot from the system that I use. This is of the extension from Azure DevOps. If you use Azure DevOps, you know this, but if you don't know Azure DevOps, in Azure DevOps, there's an extension called the test plan. As you run your tests there, manually or automation, then you can produce this progress report. It's just an example, but under this one test plan, I've got 378 test cases, and under these test cases you have steps in each one of those. So this is just showing that 100% did run and 378 has passed, but throughout the course you see that some did not run, obviously, from the beginning, and as you progress there's some bugs there, and then the bugs got closed, then we retested and passed, and some not applicable. In the end realize, it's no longer applicable, but it doesn't show here. You can't see, the line must be really thin. And then within the test plan, then the number of tests from each particular phase. So end-to-end 13, UAT 13, functional process test 326, exploratory 26 tests. Yeah, so these can help support the completion of tests, producing a progress report. Test work products. Work products. Depending on the organization you are working on and the tool, this depends on the tool that you use to help and support you on these. This can be called work items. So in Azure DevOps, we call work items or user stories. That could be a feature as well. It depends on who managing that board. Be a Scrum Master, Product Manager, or Business Analyst, or Developer. This is where, the high-level explanation of each one of these items. There will be even more explained in details as I move along. But it's a good basis for you to follow if you don't know where to start. If you are a junior tester, if you're getting into tester, these can help you structure your plan. Yeah, so the test planning work products, the monitor and control products, test analysis, test design, implementation, execution, completion. It is more or less the same thing that we just talked about in the process, but in a different wording, which is good for you to help you remember that. So the test planning work products, while you are producing the test plan, you got to ask these questions. What am I testing? Who are testing? Where am I testing? When? How? Why? All these questions, if you answer these questions, can help you produce the test plan along with the planning work products, which is the work items or user stories. It can help you with the traceability of your testing as well. The test monitoring and control work products. So I normally create like dashboards in Azure DevOps. Again, in Jira, there must be an equivalent one in Jira as well, where I can kind of, know where I am, what I'm doing, and what I'm capturing. These can be helpful for producing the completion of the test. You can, in some places we call the test exit report or the TER, where you can produce in a given milestone where a piece of work goes live. This is an example. So I captured the bugs, the user stories I'm working against to create the test cases. The test cases I'll show in another slide, but this is more for the user stories. Yeah, this is how I monitor it. And if someone asks me, Roger, can you give me an update? And this is how I kind of talk them through. Say, look, I'm doing this. This is the X amount of days that we have to achieve, and I've done this, and I've done that, and that this is what the work I've got assigned to myself to do, and so on. And the status as well, which is quite good. I like that. Test analysis. Once you get the requirements, you start to work on the analysis, and within the analysis, you produce the project attributes for that, and the work products can be things that you have to consider is the number of verification points, number of transactions, interface, baseline test data, testing type, application on the test. All these things you have to consider when you producing that to help you with the traceability of the work. Test design, work products. So the output of the test design work is test cases and a set of tests called the suite, and divided by test phases and the test types to apply the test conditions defined in the test analysis work. Created a test plan, a new test management tool, like I showed, Azure DevOps, that you have at your disposal. If you don't have a tool, then use a spreadsheet. I have templates as well on my website. So you start with a high-level scenario and then expand as you move into the environment, as a test types of tests. Most of these can be reused, so you incremental as you move along to phases with your test cases. So it's important to have, the user story linked to the requirements. It has acceptance criteria for you to verify against and rely on. So in static, you would have, informal reviews, walkthroughs, technical review inspections. You have a static analysis tools to check, data flow, control flow. In dynamic testing, you have a bit more like structure-based statement, decision, conditions, multiple conditions, or you have experience-based, which is error guessing, exploratory testing, specification-based, equivalence partitioning, boundary value analysis, decision tables, state transition, use case testing. And then moving on to test implementation work products. This is how the tests are going to be carried out and the sequence of events or defined test. The test suite is ready and good to go. In the case of test and automation, the test execution schedule is ready. So you may redefine the test cases from the original created in the analysis phase. So you could start to create the test there, but in this phase you kind of said, oh no, I need to redefine these. That's fine. And then within the environment life cycle, you have the development, testing stage, and production. So development used by developers. There's no client data. In the testing used by QA engineers and testers. There's still no client data. In staging used by QA engineers, testers, and it could be used by UAT as well, the user acceptance testing team. And it has limited production data or masked data, like where you copy data from production, but you mask it or you scramble the data. And in production, used by the clients. This is when it goes live production, and it has full production data, so very limited access for testers and developers in there. Test execution work product. So this is part when you have the and I'll show an example in the next slide. This is part when you have the document the status of individual or overall test cases that you worked with. So where you have your test plan and your test cases, and where you show where it has run, passed, failed, or blocked, and all the bugs as well has been captured. Let me show you this. But this is good to link back to the user stories. And so you have traceability of why am I testing this block of tests, where does that links to? It has to link back to the user story. Again, this is another screenshot from Azure DevOps, the test plan, which is an extension in there that we can create the test plan, the test suites, and the test cases, and all can be linked back to the user story where you're testing to help with the traceability of the test and the coverage. And this is an example of an application being testing for a web form for a system, for a CRM system. There are different tools out there. There are Jira, Zeph, Test Complete, and many others. But you can use a spreadsheet as well. There are plenty of templates out there. I've got templates in the website as well if you'd like to download. This is how you kind of know where you are when you're testing in terms of the outcome. Am I testing? Is it running? Has it passed, failed, and so on. Test completion. So once everything is complete, all the tests are complete, the completion criteria has met, then you produce a summary report. Some places called test exit report, or abbreviated by TR. I like to use the wiki in Azure DevOps, where I can continuously keep changing it until it's all done and complete. So I don't wait until everything's done and then start working on the document. I work on the document as I go along, and in the end I just export as a PDF and seek for sign off, and that will collate to support for the CAB approval, where the management gets together, review, and says, oh yeah, no, that's good, I think you guys covered everything that you meant to cover, and we are happy and confident with what we're showing, and therefore we're gonna approve to go live. And this is an example of that document. Because it's a big document, I just put a screenshot here. I hope it's okay with you guys, but it's just to give an overview of what the document could look like. So this is the first page, so I start from this side. So so basically captured, version control, the report of who are the manager, who the tester, what's in scope, functional, non-functional, the test phases, the deviation from the plan, the execution, manual test automation, bugs, recommendations, and the distribution list, the people who are who have to sign it off, all the management team. Yeah, this is where I captured. You see, that's why I like the wiki from Azure DevOps, because it captures the state, it captures, and it contains links as well. So because this is a query run from the system, so it contains the links that if people even from the PDF as well, if they wanted to click on these links, it takes them back to the expanded explanation about a particular area, like the user story or the bug or anything else. Yeah, this is a screenshot from the progress report. I haven't found yet a way to put it as an iframe yet, but I'm gonna find out how to do that, which is quite good if you can do that dynamically. Anyway, so this is it. So maintaining traceability between the test bases and the test work products. My video is on the front of the word there. This is an example template that I've got on the website as well. The software test and traceability matrix. This is just an example of the business requirement document and the functional specification and the test scenario has that passed or not, and that can kind of give traceability of what part of the system this is from, which is quite good.